Mm-hmm.
Plus. All righty. So no intro tonight. We will have we'll have something special here, um, uh, to be determined. But anyway, Jimmy, I
Yes.
wanted to get right down to things tonight. We have a lot to talk about. Uh, you are the game console aficionado of the show, so that there's a lot of gossip, a lot of potentially misinformation going around about the new Switch. I heard that it's an insane amount of money, and that Super Mario World is like $100. And there's a lot of people pissed off at Nintendo right now.
So to give a quick breakdown, the base price of the console is 450. Um, if you buy the Mario Kart World bundle, it's 500. Honestly, the price point of the console and the bundle, I don't think is bad. A base PlayStation and a base Xbox X and like a Series One and all that was in that neighborhood.
Okay.
I think the base price, yeah, compared to like to PlayStation 5 Pro, I don't think the price of the console is a scam. Where my issues lie is uh games are now going to be priced at 80 to $90 depending on the game, which I have issues with. Joy Cons are going to be 90. I have a problem with that too, given that Joy-Con drift was really plagued the Switch initially with its launch and everything, and a lot of Wave One stuff. I got a Wave One Switch, and I had to replace Joy-Cons twice. So I don't want the same case here because if I have to replace two sets of Joy Cons, that's gonna run me 180, and I'm not.
Right. And are you going to be able to use the current Joy Cons on the new Twitch, or
Mm,
the new Switch, or will you have to buy all new equipment for this?
you can. The equipment from the regular Switch is compatible with the new, so that's not particularly bad.
And where do you see the direction of this going? Because I know that Nintendo does not lower their prices. They don't have a greatest hits. They don't exactly clearance anything. And they also, seem to have the best lawyers, and uh, they love playing hardball. So
Yeah,
I don't think any of this is going to change. And now you're going to have top titles on Switch being $80 to $90. You already have pre-order games. Okay, to pre-order WWE 2K15. I'm sorry, 2K25. My bad. 2K25 WWE. If you want like the Bloodline pack, or sorry, the Bloodline edition, or whatever special editions they have out, you're going to pay probably $120 for that. So it seems like anymore, video games being $25 at GameStop, that hasn't been the case in decades. And now, do you think there's going to be less people purchasing games, or is it not going to change the culture for avid gamers at all?
I don't think it's gonna change. Nintendo has enough of a fan base to where people are going to buy into it. I was predicting that the base price of games would jump to 70. I'm not saying that was any better, but I felt that that was realistic. So when I saw the jump to 80 or 90, I was like,
And
fuck
the base price
me.
used to be about 50, right? Around that range.
So I remember when they were 40 for a bit.
Yeah.
Then some jumped to 50 and that was fine. 60 was pushing it, but I could live with it. But what really and the other thing that kills me is that people would show ads of like adverts of like super of like it was like a clip of like prices for the Super Nintendo games and stuff like that from back in the day. But what people are leaving out is these were like advanced hardware editions, like they had better hardware than their regular
Right.
compatriots. So that was an attempt to.
And you could also argue that, $20 in 1980 was a bit steep in general. I'd have to imagine. But also, what I think is a little unsettling is that now, okay, if you think about it, do you remember when video games, it used to be like your E rated games were like $15, $20, and they were usually like some sort of cartoon or like Disney movie would have a game out. It'd be something that was absolutely meant for kids that would be a lot cheaper at, say, like Toys R Us or what have you. But then like your Halos and your mainstream games were upwards of 40 or $50. Like there used to be somewhat of a of like I guess you could say like a ratio. There used to be somewhat of a pecking order of how much are we going to charge for what audience, and that's kind of went away too, right?
To a degree, indie developers do still sell games for less than what you would expect for retail. But beyond that, yeah, I had a feeling that games are gonna go up. And the worst thing is that unless you get the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass, you have to pay an upgrade. You have to pay an upgrade price to be able to play your Switch 1 games on the Switch 2, which really bothers me because you shouldn't tell people that your games are going to be backwards compatible and then throw in their face, oh, if you want the resolution and quality on this new console, you're going to have to pay. Otherwise,
Well,
you know,
that's like the thing with, and that's kind of always been the case, is that everything's an add-on, everything's an expenditure. But now at the age of subscription services, it was only a matter of time until these game companies figured out a way to maximize that. So, it
yeah,
might be a such thing with the Switch that
it
you have to pay like a fucking annual subscription
it
to be
was
able to
never
have backward compatibility and
it was
etc.
ne- it was never really that. It wasn't always the case though. Like GameCube games were compatible with like the Wii was backwards compatible with
Oh,
GameCube games, and the DS was backwards compatible with Game Boy Advance games, and Game Boy Advance SP and the Game Boy Advance was compatible with Game Boy
oh
Color
yeah, and then
and Game Boy
PlayStation 3, you
games.
could play PlayStation 1
Mhm.
and 2. Yeah, I
Yeah.
I, I know that. But what I more so meant is that this is kind of like the evolution of the DLC. Slower and slower, everything was an add-on, everything was more money. And now it's to the point where if you even want to play the fucking games, you're gonna have to pay a subscription just to do that on top of everything
Well,
else.
you'll be able to play them. It's just they won't have that crisp quality. And I say like some of the games in that presentation had pretty decent quality, but then you look at the most recent Pokemon title and the quality is at best GameCube level, which is really embarrassing for the Switch and the Switch 2. This was the best that Game Freak can do, and it just sucks. But to get rid of some misconceptions though, uh some games, not all of them will have this it's this it's like this chip reader thing to try to combat piracy. And that's not going to be the case for every game. I can imagine it's for some of the more heavy hitters and stuff like that. Um, there was another rumor that Nintendo was going to charge more for physical versus digital. That was thoroughly debunked. But I let that one
Yeah, I
sit.
heard that too.
I
I
let
did
that
hear about that.
I let that sit for a bit because even though it was debunked, I didn't deny the possibility that that could sadly be the case, that that was something they were going to try. I'm glad that's not the case because I think that would really I think that would fuck them over. Now there's criteria though if you want to pre-order this thing. The only way you can pre-order this thing now is if you had the Nintendo Switch online services for at least a year, and there's a way you could prove it. And then I think there's like two other stipulations I can't remember. So they're not just letting anybody pre-order it. They're only letting those who seem to be dedicated customers.
Right. The last thing they want are people that are pre-ordering them as resellers and that kind of shit.
Well, here's the thing. It does like they're trying to stop scalpers, but are we going to pretend that there are scalpers out there who don't game? How do you
Right, of
know? How do
course.
you know that there isn't a scalper out there who's had your subscription service for a year or more? How do you know? You don't.
Right.
So I understand what they're trying to do, but I don't think it's going to work. But it's it is what it is. We'll see how sales for it go. I predict that sales for it will be decent. I won't be surprised. Nintendo consoles for the most part outside of like the Wii U and I think one to two other consoles tend to be pretty hot calamities. They tend to fly off the shelf.
Yeah, and when you hear some of that stuff, it kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth. But then when you hear, okay, some things have been debunked. We're not going to have an upcharge to play the like last gen games necessarily, and things of that nature. But do you think that it's going to be as you think it's going to be as popular as the first Switch? Do you think as many casual purchasers will go for the Switch too?
Well, if they're a casual purchaser, probably because the casuals and by casuals I mean the fans who for lack of a better term are shills will just buy anything that a company throws out there, the type of people to where if you criticize the product you're somehow the problem even if your criticisms are valid.
But
if you're
there's
just
going
a,
to be yeah.
if you're like the mother, the dad, the grandmother, whoever buying it for your kid, I can't fault them for that because they want that it's what their kids want. For me, I'm going to buy it just to see how it is. So if people ask me, is it worth buying? Is it worth dealing with all that? Because I've got the cash to throw around. Like I'm at that point in my life to where 500 plus bucks is kind of a drop in the bucket. Like it's
Right,
not.
especially when you're not spending $500 all the time.
No.
And and you might spend $500 every couple of years when one of these consoles come out. But so do you foresee as far as the Switch goes, um are there any big titles that you are looking forward to?
Uh Mario Kart World is looking good. I think it's going to be the best Mario Kart to date. It's it's got a pretty big roster. It's open world. When you end a race, rather than it transitioning to the next track, you actually have to drive to the next course. So I think that's
Oh, I like that a lot. So you are getting a lot of different features for the fact that you're paying so much money.
yeah. Mario Kart is something I never question the quality of because they've generally handled the quality of that stuff with pretty decent care. It's always been
Yeah.
like that's always been a hit. Like Mario Kart 8, I'm pretty sure is still like the highest selling Switch game at like 53 million copies, I believe it was. Some amount. Like
Yeah,
it's
my oh yeah, my family when everybody gets together, it's Mario Kart, it's Mario Party. It's one of the games along those lines.
yeah,
So yeah, most certainly. Yeah,
new Don
I think I don't know if they'll buy the second Switch or not, my parents. But I would certainly. I'm looking at this roster right now, and yeah, looks like there's a lot of fun stuff
new Donkey
on this new.
Kong, new
Yeah,
Kirby. new Zelda within Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Like they've got a pretty decent like the lineup's pretty decent. Like they're in this position where the lineup is decent and they've got a lot, like there's a lot of pros here, but the cons really do kind of heavily weigh it down. And that's kind of my problem is that there's a lot of good, but the cons, even for as little as they are pretty big cons, and they do weigh things down kind of
Well,
significantly.
I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Okay. So we know that the Wii U was nowhere near as big as the original Wii. That
Which
the
is
original Wii had so much novelty behind it and so much selling power, and by the time the Wii U came around, it was just a lot less momentum there.
well, that and like the Wii U kind of felt like a prototype for the Switch.
Right,
And
right.
it's sad because the Wii U did have a decent catalog of games, and I didn't know about some of the catalog of those games until I played their Switch ports, and I was like, wow, there was actually some really good games here. They had a lot of decent shit going for it, and it just kind of it was that and the 3DS were the last two consoles that had like a legacy eShop before we moved to this as you like the whole subscription thing, which I don't really like either because for the expansion pass you get access to a lot of these retro consoles. The problem is that I have pretty much
Right.
all of these consoles. So with the exception of me not having to pay the upcharge for the upgrade price for the Switch 2 games, I never had a reason to buy the expansion pass because I have a Sega Genesis, I have a GameCube, I have a Game Boy Advance SP, which allows me to play Game Boy Advance games, Game Boy Color games, Game Boy games. I have a GameCube that allows me to play all that stuff. I have a Sega Genesis that allows me to play all of that. And it just,
Right.
you
And I
know,
and I do think that for people that don't have that stuff, I guess this answers my question. As far as how are they going to persuade the casuals to purchase this console by doing all of the retro consoles, by having
it
all the virtual
it,
perks.
it it's not the casuals. It's not the casuals you have to convince. It really is the hardcore people you have to convince. The casuals don't really care as much about the stuff as the hardcore people. The hardcore people like me that look at all the factors, you look at the price of the game, you look at the price of the accessories, you look at what the lineup for stuff is for the next set of months, especially coming into a holiday season. You look at how they're handling the backwards compatibility stuff, and then you have to regard, is it going to have some of the same issues that the first Switch had? Because in addition to Joy-Con drift, a lot of people, when they would slide their stuff into the dock, sometimes it would like scratch like the
Right.
screen. So we have to make sure that this time around, all the issues that we had with the Switch in the first wave,
Yeah.
we really want to make sure that we avoid, since this is a more pricey thing, and since we're also making pre-orders a little tight, we want to make sure that we get it right out of the gate. It's important.
Right. And well, speaking of things being a bit messy, over the weekend, you and our pal saw a particular film,
Fuck.
and I know you've already kind of aired your grievances about said film, but I was going to let you articulate them here. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
So I think it was about Sunday or Monday. Richard said to me, "Hey, you want to go see Minecraft?" I was like, well, let me look at the Rotten Tomatoes score first. I don't
was this,
always like to use Rotten Tomatoes as a metric, but they've been sort of
and what
accurate.
day was this?
It was Sunday or Monday that he asked me, and then we saw it yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So Wednesday he bought the tickets. I paid for it. So I looked at the Tomato score, and at the time I think it was like a 50 or a 52. So on my mind, I'm like, okay, this isn't good, but it's not really bad either. It's kind of just slightly above average. So I thought, okay, it's just going to be your like a slightly above average sort of thing. Fuck me, was I so wrong. And it wasn't just
What
the movie
happened?
that It wasn't even just the movie that was bad. It was the viewing experience that was bad too. About 2 times in the film, the visuals on screen cut out, so we only had audio. This happened at I'm. This
So
happened at
was that more on the theater
that was on
than
the
the film
theater.
though? Yeah.
That was on the theater, but
Okay.
still, that doesn't help when you're watching a movie that you kind of think is bad. It doesn't help the viewing experience when the visuals cut out and you can only hear it. And
Is
this,
this the same theater that
that,
you typically always go to?
yeah, and I've never had this happen. So it happened once, and I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, okay, technical issues, shit happens. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. We got back to it, and things were fine. Then it happens again in the final battle,
Oh no.
which is the worst possible spot for this to happen. So I have that going on, and for some reason, me and Richard are next to a bunch of fucking kids who would not shut the fuck up. It was bad, man. As a
So,
matter of
so,
fact,
so so they just kept talking the entire movie.
yep. So when the movie
Was
was
the
over,
theater a packed theater?
it was. There was only like
And
5 seats left available when we got in.
and this was during the week at some point, you said.
This was the weekend.
Oh, okay.
So so after the movie ends, I shit you not, I said, "Wow, that movie was shit." It didn't really help though. There was a bunch of kids next to me who wouldn't shut the fuck up, and I yelled that. I wasn't quiet about it. I yelled that. That was the loudest I think I've ever said that word. I was not happy. So, on to my critique of the film outside of the outside stuff.
Outside of Jack Black being Steve.
You mean no, Jack Black was Jack Black. He wasn't Steve. And I got to tell you, Jack Black being Jack Black works in certain films. For example, Jack Black being Jack Black in School of Rock works because that's what
That's the
it's
fucking point of being there.
yeah, and that's fine. And I think it's a great
Right.
movie for it. Kung Fu Panda to a degree.
Was
That
just Jack
works.
Black being Jack Black as a panda.
Yeah. And then you have Nacho Libre, Jack Black being Jack Black, except he's a wrestler. Like it works. Those slots are fine, but it doesn't work here. What like the core problem I have with this movie, it's like they took 3 storylines and they shoved them into one movie rather than picking one storyline and having that be the main thing. It also wasn't animated, which is
Right, at
so
all.
bizarre that you would not animate that. It also doesn't make sense that there are other people there in the world because when you play Minecraft, you are the only person there. Until you meet other people, you are the only person in that world. There are no other people there. That is all for you. That is your frontier to explore. So this idea that there's a portal between the real world and the overworld, it was utter nonsense. But the movie starts off with Steve briefly. Then it gets into Jason Momoa's character. And he's a guy who runs this game store and it's got a bunch of shit in there from the 80s and that's when I found out that the movie was directed by the guy who did Napoleon Dynamite, which is fucking sad because I love Napoleon Dynamite. So I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And you could tell that if you eventually when that I don't know how to tell you other than to watch it. You've watched Napoleon Dynamite, I assume. I can
Oh, of
imagine,
course.
and I
Plenty.
can, and you
Yeah.
know the style that it has. You know how the
Yes.
dialogue and everything is presented. You could watch this movie, and it's basically Minecraft with Napoleon Dynamite dialect for the most part.
Oh boy.
It's
Oh
just
no.
so there was musical numbers which I was also not expecting.
Well, I mean, well, Jack Black has to sing in every movie.
Well, it doesn't really work here. And that's why I'm saying that for as much as I like Jack Black, you shouldn't have casted him as Steve. You should have cast someone else. Like it just
Someone a
didn't
lot
work.
more youthful. I thought Steve was a young man.
He is, and Jack Black unfortunately is not a youthful soul, and if that pisses people
No,
off, I'm sorry. Suck my dick.
he's not. Jack Black is 55 years old.
Yeah, and I hate to say this too, for the sake of accuracy to the character, Steve isn't fat. I'm sorry. I like Jack Black, but he is a round motherfucker. Like, maybe when they do a live action of Kung Fu Panda, they could actually get you on stage. They wouldn't have to change very much. I'm
No.
sorry.
And I do think when they finally do a live action of Kung Fu Panda, Jack Black will be he will do
Well,
all of the um
you'll be able to
all of the what did they used to call it when they would put him in the suits? Oh fuck, it doesn't matter.
anyway.
Yeah.
So Jason Momoa's character used to be was like this professional arcade game player. He was at the top of the world. So I want you to imagine Billy Mitchell, if he was actually successful, fell off, eventually meets this kid, which I'll get into the brother and the sister, who are the other two characters, and then has a change of heart and realizes that not everything should be about business, and you shouldn't be a stingy, cheap, soulless cocksucker. I just I like Jason Momoa, but I don't know why he was this game store owner.
So what I'm trying to understand is, so are they kind of like mo-capping all these people and into a digital space, or is
No,
everything live action?
no. Um, it's sort of a it starts off introducing the overworld of what Minecraft is, and then it segments to Jason Momoa's character. There's a brother and sister I'll talk about in a moment, and then there's this real estate lady.
Are
That's
there any villagers in the movie?
There are villagers in the movie,
Like
and the way that
accurate to villagers in Minecraft?
um yes and no. I don't remember the villagers from Minecraft looking like uh it's the villain from the Smurfs. I cannot fucking remember his
Oh,
name.
Gargamel.
Yeah, they look a lot like Gargamel. So I want you to imagine Gargamel, except they have Squidward's nose instead,
Oh,
squared like.
well,
That's what
that's
they
what I
look
was.
like.
Yeah, I was trying to say before that I thought that Jack Black could do like the motion capturing for Kung Fu Panda. They should have just CGI'd all of these villagers. I don't
It
understand.
should have just been animated.
Right? It could have been an animated
It
film,
should have just been
just voice
animated.
acted. Right?
So to just to kind of move this thing along, the brother and the sister moved to this town where Jason Momoa's character, and I'll talk about the real estate lady in a moment. They moved there because their mother died. Spoilers, we don't know why the mother died. We don't know what the mother died of. We don't know anything about the mother. It's just brought up once, and that's it. It's only mentioned in the beginning, and it's never brought up again. You would think for something like that would be brought up again, but nope, it's never brought up again. And I'm confused why you would bring up something so dark and then do nothing with it again. That has it just
So no one acknowledged this dead mother ever.
the dead mother is mentioned once in the beginning of the movie, like,
Why?
and that's it. The older sister mentions that this is what mom would want, that's why we're here. And the older sister, who I want to presume they're trying to portray as like an 18-year-old, really looks like a teenager, but yet she's supposed to be the older sister who's like the parental figure, but she looks like she needs a parental figure. It just
So everything in this movie is goofy and can't be taken seriously.
And they meet the real estate lady, who I can't really give an opinion on because she's just kind of there. On the only annoying line she said was is that adulting sucks. Jesus Christ. Thank you. When I think of a Minecraft movie and all the cool stuff within Minecraft, I want to hear a black lady who's playing a real estate agent say Minecraft's I mean adulting sucks.
Adulting sucks. Well, you know, Jimmy, I've sometimes my wife will turn on these various Netflix films, and these shows are so hokey, and the dialogue just completely stinks. I've been under the impression for a long time that Chat GPT is spitting out a lot of templates for these scripts, and then
Probably because Chat GPT has Chat GPT has been statistically proven to be getting dumber and dumber. I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
it like it's like don't let people don't like people talking about the rise of AI and stuff like that. Sure, it's concerning in some areas, but when you look at Chat GPT, it's gotten worse. Like
Like
it's
you should see the sentences that
oh I
Chat GPT forms.
oh
You
I
should
fuck with
see these sentences.
oh I fucked with it. That's how I know that it's getting dumber and dumber because I fuck with it on the random occasion, and it's
Oh yeah,
be,
like
be
sometimes I'll tell Chat GPT, "Oh, write me a story about a guy named Bob and a guy named George." And Chat GPT will come up with the most boneheaded fucking story about a guy named Bob and a guy named George. I mean, there's no like real creative consciousness to it.
no.
It blows.
It's but anyway, so the younger brother, which I feel like the movie was trying to be the focus of, and it kind of is, but kind of isn't. Is an outcast in school. He's super creative, and you know what? Had the movie been more focused on the brother and sister dynamic, I think there is a story that could talk about kids in school, especially in public school, who have creative aspirations, who have their creativity stifled, if not by the public school system. You have teachers and adults and people like that saying that um you need to focus on this, trying to move them away from that. And the way that they rebel is they will allow their imagination to run wild and they go with it. Well, the kid, two random bullies that don't appear again until the end of the movie because reasons say you can't build a rocket thing. Kid builds a rocket thing, flies this it's like the skeleton thing in a chemistry classroom. It flies around, hits this potato like thing at this factory that the sister's working at, and yeah, I know
It's
this is the Minecraft
just
movie, by the
really
way.
convoluted. When the fuck has Minecraft ever involved any of this? This is the
It
story you
doesn't.
decide to tell.
So long story short, the the kids for I forgot the kid actually goes to Jason Momoa's game store before we even get to that. But basically, what kicks off people heading to this world is the kid goes to Jason Momoa's store, and the way that they get to this world is you have this blue cube that totally looks like the Tesseract from Marvel, and this clear cube that has inscriptions on it, and you slip the blue cube into it, and it opens a portal in this mine, which I forgot to mention in the opening segment of the movie. Jack Black says, "When I was a kid, I yearned for the mines," and it was so stupid. Anyway, um, the brother, the sister, the real estate agent who also does stuff with zoo animals on the side for money, and Jason Momoa's character ends up in the mines, and then they're sucked into the world once this cube activates, and they have to try and survive the night. And if I'm to give it any credit, the world itself doesn't look too bad. It's just that the movie should have entirely taken place within that world. Oh fuck! I also forgot Jennifer Coolidge is in this movie as a principal. And guess what? If you they use her for a cheesy, cheap romance storyline with one of the villagers. I am not kidding. I wish I could make this up. And when Jennifer Coolidge's character hits because I don't even think her name is said. I don't fucking remember her name. She hits one of the villagers with her car because one of the villagers escapes to the real world. And at one point, she was just like, "Oh, please don't sue me." And then she was like, "Oh, we should go to dinner," because because this is a kids movie. And at one point, she says to the brother, I'm in the middle of I'm in the middle of a divorce, and it doesn't hurt as bad as I thought it would." And it's just like, why, dude? I don't. Ah. Eventually, though, the plot starts to pick up, and they're in the world. They have to learn how to survive overnight. It turns out the brothers' creative aspirations helps them survive the night until Steve shows up, and they play the song, Steve's introduction song to fight these the zombies before the sun rises is you're my little poontang.
Oh,
I
okay.
am not
Okay.
kidding. I am absolutely serious. I wish I was lying. And you want to know what kills me more about that? The last time I heard that song, it was in a White Claw advert. So that just
Right.
fucking
I feel like whoever put this movie together completely missed the mark.
whoever
Um,
put whoever put this together just saw that Minecraft was a big and trendy thing. It's been big and trending since it came out. It's still the top selling game of all time. And they thought they could just make a movie, push it out. And I've seen people defend this by saying, well, it's for kids. I really fucking hate when people do this. I hate this statement for a plethora of reasons. One, you and I both grew up with pieces of media, movie, films, and shit like that that acknowledged that we were kids, but fucking respected it. We weren't treated like we were stupid. Film writers
right.
and stuff, we were acknowledged that we were naive, but not in the stupid sense. We were naive because we just didn't know any better and we were young. And there's a way that you present stuff to people who have a sense of naivety. This isn't playing into that. This is just make cheap, corny, cornball, fucking dumb humor. The movie ends. Oh, I didn't even get. Oh, fuck. I forgot about the main villain. So, in the game, the pigs are generally in tribes across the world. Like they're
Yeah.
separated in little. Well, in this movie, they're in this dimension and they're an army. So
Are there Endermen in this movie at
there's
all?
a singular Enderman, and guess what? They give the Enderman an ability it doesn't have in the games. In the games, it does not give you hallucinations. In this movie,
No.
it does. And you want to know what the hallucinations did for the kid? He heard it took all of the characters he's met so far, Steve, Jason Momoa's character, the real estate lady and the sister, and they all downplay him. They say negative stuff to him that you would think would affect his self-esteem. But then he just beats the Enderman, gets an Ender crystal, and just leaves.
God. So there's not a whole lot happening
So
in this
basically,
film whatsoever.
the premise of this film was that for the boy you shouldn't give up on being creative no matter how old you get. For Jason Momoa's character, yeah, um it's important to run a game store and it's important to do business, but you shouldn't be a tool. And for Jack Black's character, or Steve, I forgot he was Steve, um you don't have to stay in the overworld. You can come to the real world and
So
join and
it
have a
sounds like
band.
this is just a whole lot of fucking nonsense. It had
It
no
was
source material behind it at all,
it was
and it was just crap.
it was absolute shit. And I was just between, like, I could accept the movie being bad by itself, but when I have to account for my footage cutting out twice and a bunch of fucking kids who cannot for the life of me shut the fuck up, I just
It was just a whole. Would you revisit the film on your own time, where you
no
could watch it at home?
no
And no, no.
no, I'm good. If I had to, I would have to be stoned. I would have to be I would have to hit up a friend of mine and he would have to give me some moon rock and I would have to be the king of Mars to be
In
able
order to enjoy this film
to
once
just get
again,
through it. To get through it. I'll be too stoned to remember if I enjoyed it or not. It's just so I can tolerate it.
I don't think I'll be tuning into this film. I have no reason to. But what a mess. I mean, look, I saw that the action figure they were selling of Jack Black is like just this. Have you seen it? It's
I've
just
seen
like
it.
this action figure of old Jack Black.
Yeah, and that's why I say to people, this isn't Steve. This is Jack Black dressing up like Steve. This is cosplay. This isn't
It's hysterical. It's really fucking funny.
it's It's hysterical on your end. I didn't know what capital punishment was until I watched this movie. I'd rather spend a weekend at Guantanamo Bay because at least I know I know what I'm expecting. The occasional waterboarding, sure, I might feel like I'm occasionally drowning, but at least I know what to expect.
Oh man.
But yeah, I would have to.
So
It's not as bad as Snow White. I will say that much.
I haven't seen that either.
Well,
But if
it's
you're
the
looking for
worst.
some, have you seen it too? You've seen?
I've seen reviews of it, and it's officially the worst live action movie. It's worse than Dragon Ball Evolution.
Have you?
I'm
Do
not
you
kidding.
know,
That is a thing.
do you know anyone who has seen the film?
I know people who have seen the film, and I've seen like 20 reviews of it, and they all pretty much said the same thing. It just also Disney blew 300 million on that, and they're not seeing their returns from it. What a fucking shock!
Oh God.
Moral of the story is that the best movie I've seen recently, and if this I don't know if this is in your area, but if it ever comes on a streaming service or whatnot, I would recommend for you and the wife to watch Novocaine or
Novocaine.
Working Man with Jason Statham, because at least when it comes to Jason Statham movies, you know what to expect. It's got a basic plot, if any plot at all, but it guides you straight to the action, and that's it. It doesn't demand too much of you, but it doesn't demand too little of you. It demands the right amount.
Did
Novocaine's
you
the
see
same
that?
way.
Did you see that in the theater as well?
I saw Working Man, yes. I saw
Oh,
that.
okay.
I
Just,
saw
just in,
I saw Novocaine too. I would recommend both of those. Um, the only way I'm gonna recommend Minecraft to you is if you want to know what if you want to know what capital punishment feels like, then knock yourself out.
I mean, I'm looking at some of the still photos, and there's just not a whole lot that I feel is
Let me
there's
let,
just not a whole lot that I feel like you can really build off of with this movie. There's no real
well,
reason to.
let me put this into perspective. Usually, when a film has an post credit scene, I usually stick around for it. I didn't stick around for this one. I left. I am that guy to where if there's a post credit scene for something, I usually stick around. I don't even know what the post credit scene is because I don't give a shit. If they're planning to make more, I don't give a shit. I can't be bothered to care because it was such crap. But yeah,
Yeah,
it
but
was.
anyway, something that is enjoyable to all ages, Mr. Greg Opie Hughes, and I think we will close on him tonight. Um, there's no time for stuttering John, who could possibly give a shit. But I want to show you because right now Stuttering John's on tour. Stuttering John's having a good time. He's in Akron, Ohio. He's in Youngstown, Ohio. He's in Clive, Iowa. This guy's doing his thing. But Ola Opster here, Opie is not doing so well. Opie has not been feeling himself lately. And now he feels that the way to really get those views in his direction is by telling the world how he feels about one Joe Rogan.
Before you play that, I have to read this title because it is the funniest shit. It's funnier than the Minecraft movie. Opie destroys Joe Rogan. He's not funny, but carry on.
And the ominous dot dot dot. This was uploaded by Opie.
Of course.
He really isn't a funny guy. He can muscle out some funny stuff for sure, but I don't think anyone, listens to Rogan's podcast or watches it because he's a funny guy. I was turned on to Rogan because he was insanely interesting at a time when everybody else was like playing it incredibly safe and just playing off mainstream media. But Joe Rogan was insanely interesting, and he was talking about stuff that no one else was talking about. And then he started getting guests on that mainstream media just blew off. We blew off. I don't know if we even knew they existed out there, and that's what made
Oh,
Joe
pause this
Rogan.
quickly. Can we not do this shtick? Can we not do the radio shtick of I've never heard of these guys before? Stop.
Also, I think you're missing something that Opie is saying.
I didn't miss it.
What he's saying is so dopey that I
know
think you're missing the most important part of
No,
this.
I didn't address the most important thing. I was trying to be funny. I got the gist of what he was saying. He's presuming that the only reason why Joe Rogan was never funny, and the only reason why he ever popped off was because he talked about topics and areas that no one would delve. He said this. I'm quoting what he's saying.
No, that's not the part. Opie thinks he was the mainstream media. You're missing that, Jimmy. He said the mainstream media didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it. We didn't know. Opie, in his mind, he thinks that he was like a major news anchor.
Okay, to be fair, I trusted Opie and Anthony a lot more for news-based stuff than I did mainstream media. So if I'm to give them any credit, I would trust I'm serious. I considered them far more honest compared to. I didn't think mainstream media networks were corrupt. I knew they had a bias. I didn't know that they were as bad as they were until I hit my adult years. But I always treated most talk radio stations. I guess for me, talk radio stations were kind of like what podcasts are now. I always found what people on talk radio say to be more interesting compared to the mainstream media.
Oh yeah, you don't get me wrong. I totally think that if you compare what an average news station gets to what an average listen of a podcast, or especially in those days, Opie and Anthony, they had way more listens than news radio did. Yeah, but it's just this idea that Opie really thinks that like he was up there with CNN. It's wild.
I would say that I thought they were better than CNN, but I get what you're saying. The point is that this isn't the first time Opie has said that Joe Rogan isn't funny and he could make a better podcast than him. I believe back in correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it was like 2018.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was brought up on I think it was brought up by I think it was either Anthony or Jim and Sam brought it up. This is when Opie was like tweeting constantly. Like you would have to refresh because Opie was just tweeting at nauseum. And at one point he said that he could make a better podcast than Joe Rogan and everything. And there's no way. That's like it's not possible. Joe Rogan has had that podcast forever. He is dedicated, outside of UFC, his shit with Fear Factor, stuff with I think it was Newsroom, like
News Radio, yeah,
or News Radio. I'm sorry,
the reason why people like Joe Rogan is because it's because of the interviews, the topics they were talking about, and etc. Joe has 10 jobs, is my point, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, regardless of how you feel about his politics or about his comedy or whatever, he is gainfully employed to the gills and has been for quite some time, and I think he will be for quite some time into the future. Opie, he thinks he's the mainstream media. That's what just gets under my fucking skin about this guy.
Yeah, that he's still really well, right. I think a better way to put it is that, and we've mentioned this before, he still thinks he's as influential as he was back when Opie and Anthony were at its height, and that's just simply not the case.
Right. He's waiting around to get his job back. That's what all of this is. That's why he gets on at like 4:30 in the morning or whatever it is. That's why he, when he has guests, when he's at Gebhot's and he has his guests on, he doesn't allow them to curse. That they have to be clean as a whistle when they're on with Opie, because he's really thinking that a program director somewhere is looking at him and saying, hey, let's give this guy a shot. I know that I'm not working in radio. It doesn't really matter. Okay, I know that I did. I was an intern, and it's never happening again. Those jobs just aren't around anymore. Um, unless if you're Anthony Cumia, unless if you're a big star like Anthony Cumia, okay, then you'll get on the air.
But even then, I believe he's like, isn't he on? How many days is he on a week?
He's on 3 hours on Sunday.
Sunday.
Apparently, they're working on a couple of more days for him. Um, and I guess it'll be played by ear until some more details are solidified. But it's just the thing that Opie could be doing so much more if he wanted to.
He
What
just
I want to
refuses
know
to.
is, what does Opie think he's going to do on the radio? Do you think he just wants to go in and play some music and do the weather and throw it to the traffic
I
and just kind of ham and egg for a few hours? Is that what he's looking to do with himself?
I think he's gonna try and do what Opie and Anthony did, except do it by himself. But as you and I both know, whereas Opie had other talents, he didn't have his talent wasn't carrying discussions, having the crazy nuanced discussions. That was pretty much in everybody else's court. Anthony, Jim, Patrice, Nick when he would come in. Even come on, what's your name? Fuck, even Rich Voss contributed more to that
Right.
shit.
And that was the other side of the coin too. When Westwood One, said, "Here's $100,000,"
That's when
and
Vince McMahon was trying to get him on board. Yeah,
right, and for him, it seemed to be a lot of, well, this is why I can't do it. And the reason that Opie couldn't do it, if you remember, was because he had to pay everybody. Because in his mind, he needed Vic, and Gerard Small and Carl Ruiz and whoever else in there.
I don't think
Because
he would. I don't think he would get Sherrod back because I thought Sherrod outed him for the stunt that got him fired from
yeah, but
Sirius.
he had Sherrod Small in his podcast. Once he got fired, he still had Sherrod and Vic and Carl. When Vic and Carl died within 6 months of each other, that was when Sherrod kind of cut ties with Opie. He felt like, well, if I want to live to see 50, I can't hang out with Opie anymore. He's the kiss of death. So Sherrod gone.
Erock also pointed out that Opie has to feel like he's the guy who builds it himself. And he also talks about the money.
Oh yeah,
To which I'll say a point I've said before. You're not going to get paid as much as you used to. You're not at the top of your career. You're not a young 30-year-old man. Like you're in your 60s. Like,
right.
You're not like there's no way they're going to pay you the same amount. You don't have that you don't have that same vigor as you used to, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's
And he talks about how, Opie, or sorry, Anthony ruined the O&A show. And obviously, Anthony worked for 10 years with Compound Media. He's now back on the radio. Opie was given the opportunity to have a studio and he didn't want it. He openly admits now that he needs money. Maybe he'll start substitute teaching like old Stuttering John. Could you imagine if Opie was a substitute fucking teacher?
I feel bad for a student who brings in yogurt with a spoon. No, the other thing to point out too is that Anthony got fired of his own fruitions and actions, but he didn't complain, he didn't cry, he just built something with the compound, and it eventually led to the gig he has now. Whereas when Opie got fired, he didn't really seem to have much of a fallback, or when he was offered a fallback by Tim to build a thing for him. And I'm annoyed about that too, because that cost E-Rock a gig that he was going to have with another show, because Opie couldn't just say yes or no in the moment. He had to keep stewing. And
well, he wanted to know, well, how much money am I going to make? because you got to remember too. Okay, he has a place in Philly.
Yes.
He has a place on Long Island.
Yeah.
He has the apartment in Manhattan. There's a lot of plates he's spinning, as he
Yeah.
says. So
Yes.
he thinks he's going to get like a $500,000 deal so that he can make 250 and pay the other guys the scraps. It's not going to happen. $100,000. Him, if he was a talent, maybe him and Vic Henley could have done a show. Maybe him and whoever he brought in that day could have done a
Well,
show, much like Cumia did.
yeah,
You know,
and that's what Tim. I think Tim figured out why Anthony with the compound succeeded, and he was trying to give Opie the same structure. Anthony literally did that. He would bring in people not just from the O&A show. You would bring in, he brought in Artie Lang, he brought in Stut Joe. A bunch of people would be rotated in, and
right.
Vic was not Vic. Tim was trying to do the same thing for Opie, and Opie just, rather than saying, "Okay, I'll take the pay, we'll get the comedians booked, and we'll just run it and do that," but he just could not do it. I believe the money for sure is a part of it, even though Christy Mayer and E-Rock and other people have mentioned it. It's crazy that you would turn down 100,000, even though you do a show for nothing. Like,
Right, but
you don't get
right,
paid shit.
right. And he turned that down because he felt like, well, he would only be able to make 60,000 because he'd have to pay Vic and Gerard and blah blah blah,
Which
instead
you
of
should,
just taking it and figuring it out.
yeah.
I don't know,
And
because
and
he
the
could have
other
done live shows. Like he
and
could have found ways to make additional cash. He could have hosted comedy gigs. Fucking Tim Sabian was saying, dude, be the MC of a comedy show. As a part of your broadcast, I will get you a deal where you just bring comedians up on stage in Connecticut and in New Jersey and that kind of shit. He was trying to get him on the road, and Opie just was completely
he
reluctant to
cannot
accept
set
anything.
aside he can't set aside his pride because he still thinks he's this rising star. He's this aspiring figure, and it's not the case. It hasn't been the case for a long time.
He's 61 years old.
I don't even think it has much to do with the age as it is the mindset. The age is obviously a part of it, but it's just that Anthony, I can imagine, took to pay because one, a gig's a gig, money is money, and two, he probably acknowledges that unless he does super well, which he has been with his gig, there is no way he's going to get more money unless he proves to whatever station or whatever picks you up or whatever that you're worth a fuck. I
Right.
can't go like with the job that I have now. When I started there, I couldn't walk in there and demand the amount that I get paid now. I had a flat amount that I wanted to be paid, and as I steadily went, they decided to give me raises because they saw that I
Right.
was worth, it was worth paying me because of the work I was doing. I simply can't go in there and be like, yeah, I need to be paid about the same that the guy who runs the business does, and if you don't, then you just don't acknowledge my talents. It's so stupid. What are you doing?
Right. And also, I'm pretty sure, okay, that at some point, you just have to recognize that your star has fallen a bit. People don't know who Opie is. If you say Opie and Anthony, the average person does not know what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
you're gonna have to accept the fact that you're a 60-year-old guy, and you're gonna have to spin some oldies and fucking live with yourself. But enough about Opie. Opie will just be who he is, and he'll be a millionaire in spite of himself. But before we go tonight, Jimmy,
Yes.
I had one more thing
Yes.
that I wanted to ask you about.
Of course.
So, have you heard Bill Burr defending the Snow White movie?
Yes, and oh man, it if it wasn't the last episode, I'm pretty sure it was the episode before where we played a bunch of like we played Bill Burr on The View. We talked about what Anthony had to say about
Yeah.
it. I have said about everything I could really say about Bill Burr. Him defending Snow White is the same Hollywood elitist bullshit. And it's the same shit. You don't like this movie because women will you're just a sexist, man. It's the nerds with the robots that don't know how to talk to women, man. Fucking prick.
Oh, it's so fucking goofy. And it's really like he said, oh, the rednecks are crying about Snow White. Like they weren't crying about Snow White. It was a critique of Rachel Ziegler and the things that she was saying about
Yeah.
culture. And it's all a sham. And what I really do think is a lot worse is that, like you said, Bill Burr represents a big part of the culture. Bill Burr represents what happens when someone who is truly a talented person, um, who truly was a funny guy, who's always considered himself a liberal, but was still a very funny guy and had a bit of an edge to him.
Yeah.
He would go on Conan O'Brien and make him visibly uncomfortable, and it was funny. Everything Bill Burr did in those days was funny. But then he got a little bit of that Mandalorian cash, and that was the end of our buddy Bill Burr. That was where his artistic integrity came to an end. Because he had to. He had to muck it up,
I mean, yes and no. You could just say fuck it. He has the money, man. He could have just said fuck it. Could just
I don't know if it's about the money for Bill Burr. I think what he has.
Then what else could it? Well, what else could it be then? Why else are you getting gigs from Disney? Do you think Carrie Ann Moss is going to pretend that she didn't play a role in Star Wars because of the cash? Come on, it's
right. But what I'm getting at is I really do think that Bill Burr, he wants to be seen as something of a true name in Hollywood. Maybe not an A-lister, but he certainly wants to feel like he's like he's one of them. He wants to be seen as an actor. He wants to be seen as a big deal. And I'm sure his wife has plenty of A-lister friends that they have to look good in front of. And now because of that, Bill Burr is obsessed with politics.
Oh, I know.
He is obsessed with rhetoric. He is obsessed with this gotcha nonsense. And the only reason that in my mind that I can see it being worth the hassle for Bill to be doing this shit is because, this is his way in. This is his way of being the A-lister who gets invited to the Grammys and gets to, be on SNL and, just you see what Bill's life is now.
I've seen it. I've kept up with his most recent endeavors, and I think I've said everything I can say about him. Unless he stooped lower, I don't know what else I can add here that I haven't said before. It's beating a dead horse, and it's kind of like with Opie. I can only beat the dead horse so much, man. Like,
yeah, and it also too, like, if you think about that, when Opie said, "Oh, I sent Bill Burr a text, and he said." Apparently, he said, "Oh, you did a good job on SNL," and Bill Burr texted me back, "Oh, thank you," and we're such good friends.
yeah, Anthony talked about that on the show,
right? Yeah, I don't know if Bill Burr is friends with anybody. I don't think Bill Burr likes people.
I think the only person that he genuinely liked, and I have this theory too. I really think Patrice passing also had like a huge effect on him.
Oh, right, of course.
Like I feel like that. Like I bring up his wife and I bring up the culture of Hollywood, but when I really think about it, I think Patrice's death really did and I don't blame him. I remember when I heard about Patrice dying, it was fucked up, man. And Patrice was talking about shit in the culture before it happened, and seeing some of the stuff in the culture that's happened that Patrice kind of predicted would like many moons ago is fucking crazy. He was on the money with stuff. Like
Oh yeah. And
so I can imagine that Patrice not really being there to kind of be like a buffer for Bill, I think really sucked. I think that like the three factors I look at is the Hollywood stuff being drenched within that, um his wife probably being friends with A-listers or they're married to A-listers and you need to put on a proper appearance, all that. And I think Patrice's death had some profound effect. I think in whatever order you want to consider those were like the triggers. And one of those was like the last step before he kind of just like started to slide, like just scale down.
I mean, yeah, when he yelled "Free Luigi" on Jimmy Kimmel, I was honestly speechless. I didn't think that this is where we would be in matters of Bill Burr. And look, I look at him now, unfortunately, as just being a celebrity, and he's going to have the opinion of the rest of Hollywood. And really, where comedy kind of lives now is Austin, Texas.
Yep.
That's where the comedians are now.
That's where it's been for a while because I don't think the scene will ever return to LA because there were dude, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I've talked to people who said that who think that even now that that LA's recovered from like the lockdowns and COVID. It hasn't. It hasn't recovered.
I'm sure it hasn't.
It hasn't. And I had a friend of mine going like, well, I don't know why they moved to Austin, Texas and all that. I'm like, because LA is fucked. It's not the comedy scene anymore. Lockdown and COVID killed that shit. The lockdowns fucked it. And when they decided to like double down on that shit, it fucked it over. That's why everyone left. And the comedians are like, where's the best place to build a new comedy sphere? Because if you want comedy to still be alive, every country's got a sphere that's dedicated to comedy. So we were thinking here, if it can't be LA, where's like the central hub? Because you got your places in Florida, New York, you got your places everywhere, but where's the central core hub? Oh, everybody's moving to Austin, Texas. Let's get some comedy clubs going there. And well, shit, they're thriving better there than they were in fucking LA. Oh, yeah, because there are no lockdowns, so they don't have to deal with any of that bullshit.
And also, I think a lot more people see Austin and Texas in general as touristy and affordable than California, and people are making Austin into a vacation destination for a lot of different reasons, not just for comedy. But
Joe, I remember Joe trying to convince Josh Brolin to move out there when they like in that episode they talked heavily about the comedy sphere in Austin, Texas in that episode. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, definitely somewhere to have on the list for certain. Well, Jimmy, I think this will conclude tonight. What I would like to do going forward, hold on.
While you're doing